What's going on, everybody? Dominic Crescetto for the Sunbelt Syndicate, coming to you from Beer Study here in Durham, North Carolina. We are now part of the Dawg Sports Media Network. This will still be a Sunbelt focused podcast, but we'll have more guests on this year with more fun stuff. Speaking of fun stuff, we're going to start this one off with an FCS preview. Jay and I are not experts, but we do want to cover this and have some fun with it. We are coming to you from the home of the HBCU national champion NC Central team from last season. And my guest today on the podcast is Jay Monts from College Football Dawgs. Jay, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell people the school you usually cover, we can start there and then go on to some of this stuff here.
Absolutely, Nick. I appreciate that. My name's Jay Monts. I am a Louisville contributor, so Louisville Cardinals, go Cards, baby. We are in North Carolina, and I do live in Chapel Hill. Currently, I am covering Louisville, a little bit of UNC, but my heart is tried and true in Louisville red and black.
Very nice, very nice. And you believe they're going to have a pretty good season this year, right, Jay?
You know, I think they're going to have probably a better season than they deserve. A little bit of that is going to be because of the ACC being
weak.
Let's just say mid
as the kids would say.
Yeah. And the schedule lines up nicely for a 20 to 30-year-old quarterback, 7-time redshirt Jack Plummer coming in and setting the tone with Louisville. I think will end up being a 10-win team somewhere around there. And turns out that Las Vegas tends to agree with me, so
nice.
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, this is a pretty solid outlook. And speaking of solid outlooks, we're going to take a look at some of the teams that are thought to be in the top 25 coming into the season for FCS. And as we said before, as we started off the episode, Jay and I are not experts, but we've dabbled with some FCS. Everybody pretty much watches the FCS
and
playoffs.
As I have said, speak for yourself, Nick. I've read, at this point, I've read 3 different rankings, and I would have read a 4th, so that is a lot more than I've looked at as far as Division I is concerned. I looked at the AP poll and the Coaches poll, so that was only 2.
There you go. Well, it's a starting point. And you know what? I think a lot of these listeners are probably at the same point we are. So it's something they want to have an idea on, and that's all we're here to give. We're not here to give expert opinions, but we're going to have a little fun with it today. I think Jay and I were discussing before we started recording here, we're both pretty well aware that South Dakota State won the national championship from last season. And we are both very well aware that North Dakota State is typically the team that's going to be there. Even when they don't win it all the time, they've pretty much been in the last, what seems like 10 of them, and winning most of those. I think they've only lost 2 every time they've ever been. I think they've only lost 2 of them. But
and Carson Wentz went to one of those schools.
That's true. Which one?
I'm going to say North Dakota.
That's correct.
And Dallas Goddard went to one of those schools.
Do you know that one?
South Dakota.
Correct. Man, this guy's, you see, we're more experts than we thought.
Once again, expertise here.
So those are the teams really that everyone expects to be at the top. I think probably both of us are going to expect them to be close to the top as well. However, we're going to start at the bottom of the rankings, as you want to save your best for last, right? So I'm going to throw out a couple that maybe not really ended in the rankings last season, but maybe have a chance to be ranked at some point this year. We do have a guy playing pinball right behind us, so if you do hear that in the background, I apologize. He's playing Godzilla pinball, though, so it sounds like
actually me. I am playing Godzilla pinball while I'm doing this podcast.
Yep, yeah, multitasking at its finest.
Just to show my expertise.
He's working on the high score here, folks. We couldn't stop him. We just had to mic him up and go with it. So we will do the best we can for you. Starting at the bottom of the list, in fact, probably going with some teams that really aren't even on the list. I think a lot of people have this team circled down in Texas. It's Austin Peay, receiving votes mostly in most categories. Same thing with actually a regional team to us here in Durham. In North Carolina, A&T, who's located over in Greensboro. They do, however, move up from the Big South to the CAA. Not sure exactly how much you know about the CAA, Jay, but pretty much, besides North Dakota State, most of the other really good teams that are ending up right at or very close to the national championship each year come from that Colonial Athletic Association. And I believe they're actually changing their name slightly. Their initials are staying the same. I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know if they'll be like the Coastal Athletic Association instead of the Colonial, because I know, of course, you can't have names like that anymore these days, Jay, with woke society. You have to eliminate all factors of any discriminatory things that could be thought of. So anyway, I think A&T's got a chance to impress some people. However, I'm not thinking they're a top 25 team, because I think they're going to face a schedule in that new conference that they're moving up to. It's going to be pretty difficult for them to win more than they lose. However, it is a team that routinely has a good amount of talent, put a couple guys into the NFL, and maybe could surprise somewhat. Jay, did you have any you were looking at towards the bottom that you thought maybe kind of sort of could have a shot at being ranked here at some point?
I think everybody I'm looking at is ranked. I do like to see Yale as one of the 5 teams to watch. For me, I want to always make America great again, and when Yale was a football powerhouse, that was one of the best times in America. 1897 to 1912, or whatever their reign was. People don't remember. Those were some really landmark teams that we had, and I don't think they get the same recognition as like a Michigan or Alabama. I don't know, maybe because it's been 100 plus years. But
did they throw the ball back then, Jay? Did they throw the ball in the air?
They didn't have to. They didn't. They were just so overpowering with their scheme. Yale's known for academics, but let's not forget the athletic prowess of the early 1900s football. If they didn't need face masks back then because they were men.
True. Just strap up the no face mask helmet.
Yeah.
And
just put
worry
a piece
about
of leather
CTE later.
Put a piece of leather on your head.
Yep.
And go out there and score.
Be a real man.
Yeah.
That's how they used to play back in the day. Well, thank you for that great thing. We should make Yale football great again. We should focus on that. If someone wants to make a hat and send us hats, we will proudly support them. But they have to be Democratic blue instead of the Republican red. So
Fun fact about Yale that a lot of people don't know, it is pizza capital of the world.
Really?
So take from that what you will. I would say it might correspond with the downfall of the Yale football team. So it could be a situation where, the pizza became too good and football players ate too much of it and started getting kicked. But that's just a guess.
It happens, right? I mean, pizza can do that. The pizza can get to the best of us. So.
It can.
Yeah, I know if I eat too much, I'm pretty much worthless, so I can
also
see that happening.
I wasn't going to mention this, but now I will because I believe, Florida A&M, didn't they just have their locker room shut down for a rap video?
Yeah.
I'm going to be pulling for them all year.
The Rattlers, Jay, by the way, the Rattlers. They have a snake on their helmet. I think it's one of the cooler logos in FCS football, maybe in football in general.
Maybe it could just be Florida A&M rappers this year.
Oh, I like this. You know what? Should we move them to number 1, Jay? I think we might just need to move them.
You know what? They're number 1 in my heart.
I mean, they make rap videos in their locker room. They've got to get some points just for that, right?
The part that bothered me about that is that they acted like it was a way bigger rapper than it actually was. It was some guy I've never heard of in my life, and they're like, A&M has suspended all football activities due to this rap video, and I was like, sweet, maybe it's like Kodak Black, somebody worth it, and then they just like
Rick
some
Ross.
guy I've never even, Rick Ross, he's making it, he's finally making music again, but no, they're just some, I can't even remember the guy's name, Baby Tron Theater or something.
But if he didn't have Lil at the front of his name, Lil Baby Tron or something, I mean, he's not a good rapper. If you don't start your name with Lil, you're just worthless. So
I feel like the punishment definitely does not meet the crime on that one. So I'm going to be rooting for Florida A&M to have a solid year and kind of prove the haters wrong that they don't take their football serious and they're letting rappers use their locker room as a backdrop.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see what this locker room looks. I need to go see this video now, though, because I mean, if it's good enough for a rap video, I mean, it must be high quality.
I mean, you just said they do have a sweet logo.
They do. They do have a sweet logo. I really like their logo. So, getting back into the rankings, maybe we will sneak them in. But overall, I'm going to start off with a team that finished outside of the rankings that I think may sneak in there this year. And I'm going to go with Gardner-Webb. They won their first round playoff game 52-41 over Eastern Kentucky. I'll tell that to Jay with a look in my eye, as he's from Kentucky himself. But they did lose in the second round 54-14 to William & Mary. And again, Jay, just in case you weren't aware, William & Mary is one of those CAA teams I was talking about earlier. So, looking back through the stats, as I did quickly, only because I don't typically look at FCS stats, but I did because Gardner-Webb actually plays my favorite team, App State, this year. So I did look at them a little bit and realize that their offense puts up points, as evident by their 52-41 first-round victory. It's their defense, which is the concern, which is what allowed William & Mary to score 54 points on them. So offensively, it seems like they're going to be okay. It's their defense that needs to improve. I'm saying that their defense improves just enough to get them up into the top 25 rather quickly. And I think the Gardner-Webb running Bulldogs make their, I believe it'll be one of their first appearances in a long period of time, to be honest with you. And they're from Boiling Springs, South Carolina. Is it North Carolina? South Carolina. I don't even know. I know it's Boiling Springs.
We're Hot Springs. So Boiling Springs is probably South Carolina.
Boiling, yeah, because they're hotter down there. Yeah, because they're further south, hotter. It's just how geography works. Yeah. So, folks, that's what we're going to go with. We're going to roll with that. As far as the next team, I'll throw one out there. I think North Dakota, not North Dakota State here, but North Dakota is still a very quality team. You're not going to be up there with the North and the South Dakota, but in location they will be. So I'm going to go ahead and throw them at what I would assume would be their top 25 ranking, but again, just barely inside there, maybe a 24 ranking for them to start the season out with. Jay, do you have anything to add for those two great teams we just spoke about?
North Dakota, you wouldn't think that they would be overshadowed by North Dakota State. Just based off the name.
Who's the real state school, Jay? I mean, I guess we should start there. I mean, who's the one getting all the dollars and cents here? And I mean, you got to think the Fargo Dome's inside; it's completely domed in. I actually, you know what? I think North Dakota's is too. I think. Do you know this? I'm not even positive. I know South Dakota's is outside. I think both of the North Dakota's football stadiums are indoor arenas.
I would say that's surprising, but South Dakota State did win the title, and I think that's probably because they play outside.
They're real men. They play outside. Yeah. They don't need air condition and heat to do so. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think South Dakota State.
Much warmer in South Dakota as well. People know the weather difference because it is south.
Closer to the equator, as you said. Yeah, I mean, we got an obvious geographic advantage.
Instead of -43, it's only -21 here during the winter. So
if you can't man up and play football in that,
right? What are you even doing?
Yeah, why even on the field? So I think that's a big reason. Again, Jay agrees with me that they may have taken the championship last year. So we'll move on. We got two teams we've spoken about here. I'm going to throw up a different one than maybe some people thought of and go with St. Francis from Pennsylvania. They were 7-0 in their conference last year, 9-3 overall in the NEC. I just think, the NEC conference is not the greatest in football, but I think if they can put up those kind of numbers again and just improve a little bit out of conference, I think that's a team that could make an appearance in the top 25. You know anything about St. Francis, Jay?
I'm just going to assume that's a homer pick since you are from Pennsylvania. You probably have a cousin or somebody that plays for them.
I do not, but I did graduate high school in Pennsylvania, and maybe that's clouding my judgment slightly. But it's 7-0 conference record. You got to think an unblemished conference record and a 9-3 record overall. It's got to lead to something better the following season, right? I mean, these guys aren't the programs that are going to get the transfer portal coming in and stealing their best players. So I think that team probably stays intact for the most part. And Jake, I'm just going to say, makes a jump up into the rankings this year. I'm going to follow this one up with one of Jay's favorite FCS teams in Delaware, Blue Hens. Jay, did you decide whether you thought the Blue Hen was a chicken or a rooster, or where you went with that?
They talk about the Blue Hens a lot, and I feel like it has to be a rooster. People are just so excited about that mascot. They do have the knockoff Michigan helmets, which I enjoy.
The winged helmets.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet. And Joe Flacco, Super Bowl champion.
And I'll give you another Joe. Do you know who else Joe, famous for going to Delaware University, is?
Let's say Joe Biden.
Oh, man. Nailed it. First try. Even with the Trump stuff to start the episode, he's got the Biden knowledge base as well. He's a fully well-rounded.
I saw a clip of him stating that he was, he graduated with all the honors, and come to find out he was kind of like middle of the road, which I enjoy. I respect anybody that is just lying about their college credentials.
He cheated, Jay.
Very important.
Yeah, he cheated his way to that's how he got
Especially
there.
when
his wife did his homework. She's the smart one.
I went to my college roommate. His mom did all of his papers, so I'm not against that.
Why not?
Outsourcing. It's called outsourcing when you get a little bit into the business world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can pay somebody to do your work, or hell, not pay them, then it's even better.
Right.
So
tell them you'll pay them and don't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best.
That's the best way to go about it. So moving on from Delaware, and just to mention, they had a pretty good season overall, made it out of the first round of the playoffs. Did, however, lose to the eventual national champion South Dakota State in the second round, 42-6. So they're going to have to improve really on both sides of the ball against some of those better teams, but they did play well enough from the CAA to get into the playoffs. I expect them to be in the battle again for a playoff position yet again this season. We will move up one spot, and I'll go with the Chattanooga Mocs. I don't know if they've changed their logo or not. It used to be a couple different things. I think at one point they had a train. Chattanooga's known for their trains that roll through town there, and used to host the actual national championship, Jay, in case you didn't know. They went 5-3 in the SoCon last year. SoCon probably not thought of as highly since the loss of Georgia Southern, App State, and actually Elon as well to the CAA, but he
bought Twitter, so.
Oh yeah, Elon did buy Twitter, that's correct. I mean, they've come a long way since their SoCon days, they've really improved. I think they just call themselves X now. I think that's what they do. They just call themselves
no longer
X.
Elon.
Yeah, they have the shortest name in FCS football and in all of college football in general. So we will see if X makes the rankings later on. I think possibly they do. But then we'll jump up and look at this, Jay. I didn't even notice this because I think they're on a couple different lists at different spots, but I do have Florida A&M as my next team on the list. 7-1 from the SWAC conference last year. Rap video be damned. They're going to get back up into that top 25. Maybe this suspension for the football program is what they needed to right the ship there, right? I mean, what do you think of the Rattlers as we go into this season?
There's really no better punishment than suspending football activities because of a rap video. I mean, think about that. You're a football player. You allow, this guy that's probably a low-level rapper that sold like 5 albums into your locker room, and then you don't have to practice or work out for like 2 weeks. I think they're going to be ready to go for the season more than anybody else.
Beautiful. I think I'm 100% agree now. Now that I have confirmed they're in my top 25, I have no doubts. They will be there. They will be ready to win. Getting crushed by UNC to start the season last year doesn't matter. They'll be ready. This rap video's got them pumped up for the season, and I think they will be ready to rock and roll there.
Rap and roll.
Yeah. Rap, I like that. Rap and roll. We're going to go with that. Coming in next, I'm going to go with Fordham out of the Patriot League. They went 5-1 last year. They did lose 52-42 to New Hampshire in the first round. Again, New Hampshire out of that CAA conference, but only a 10-point loss. I think Fordham could rebound quite nicely from that, stand a chance to stay within the rankings. I wouldn't say they move up. I actually have them kind of moving down. I mean, I think 5-1 within the Patriot, they could probably replicate that, but I'm not sure how much they're going to impress outside of the conference play. So I'll leave them right there around that number 19 mark. I believe I've got them at there. Let's go to number 18. We're going to move south, closer to the equator. As we've said, these teams are usually better. We're going to go with Southeastern Louisiana, 5-1 from the Southland Conference. Last year, they won their first round matchup 45-42 over Idaho, so a close-fought game there against Idaho, but they did lose to SoCon member Samford in the second round, 48-42. So look, I mean, that shows me right there, they're pretty consistent. They're scoring 45, 42 points. They're up in the 40s both games. Offensively, it looks like that tells me they need to improve the defensive side of the ball, right, Jay? I mean,
yeah,
you're the math, you're the more analytical guy here. I would say if you're allowing 40-plus points a game, that's not going to be good for you, right?
Usually that's not a winning recipe. As we know, defense wins championships on any level. And I've never heard of a championship team allowing 40 points. Yeah. But they do have quarterback Eli Sawyer, who threw a game-ending TD to beat their rival as a rookie.
Okay.
So just letting you guys know that.
There's a little tidbit, guys.
Eli Sawyer sounds like a creative player in 2014 NCAA RIP.
Yeah, it does sound a little made up. I will have to question that. Maybe that rapper got a hold of him and tried to adjust his namesake
Southeastern there. Louisiana. Now, very specific location, but I think Eli Sawyer is a fitting name for that college.
Yeah, Southeastern, that is a good point. They don't even tell you where they're at. It's just like a generalized location.
Yeah.
I think I'd rank them higher if they had said something more specific.
Maybe a city?
Yeah.
Just a city in Southeastern.
I mean, they weren't even just South Louisiana or Eastern Louisiana. Like Michigan, I mean, they just got to learn from these Michigan schools. You just got to go with one. You can't combine. There is no Northwest Michigan State football team. Well, maybe in Division II. Jay, we'll think about getting to Division II later. But anyway, getting back into the rankings as we jump up, I'm going to go with number 17, Mercer. 5-3 out of the SoCon last year. The Mercer Bears have a quality head coach there. Again, SoCon, pretty formidable conference overall. Did not make the playoffs last year. To see if they can jump up into that this year at number 17. I guess I'm kind of putting them right there on the cusp of being able to make those playoffs. But we will see if that happens. And then, guess what, Jay? We're at Team X. Elon Phoenix, baby. 6-2 out of the CAA last year. They did, however, lose 31-6 to Furman in the first round. Not a great look in that regard. However, that is a former conference foe from their SoCon days, not too far in the past. So what do you think? I mean, are you sticking with Team X in the top 25? You want to move them up or down? I mean, where do you think this team could finish?
I'm going to say I had high hopes for X. You know, when it was originally when the transaction was made, I was like, hey,
don't say transgender, Jay. You can't say transgender these days.
That's true. So, you know, I had really high hopes. But them changing their name to X, I mean, are they not focused on football? That would be my question. You made this move, and you made this huge purchase, and I'm just wanting to know. You combine two things, fur and man, which both things people love. So you got beat by somebody that I think that is probably more likable, someone that's more well respected, and a historic program. Unlike Ford Ham, which is two things that nobody prefers, fur man, many people prefer those. So I'm gonna still say they're gonna be behind Furman when it comes to this season, even with the name change.
I like the valid points you just made there with the Furman and the Ford Ham. I'd have never put in those two things. This is genius. This is genius level FCS quality content.
I'm a regular Elon.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't even know how to respond to that. But I think it was a fantastic breakdown on and off the field. I think it's correct. We're going to move on to our next ranking and jump up to Montana, the Grizzlies of the Big Sky. They went 4-4 only in conference last year, so not overly impressive in that state. They did, however, make it to the second round of the FCS playoffs, where they lost 49-26 to North Dakota State. Not ultimately surprising to lose necessarily. I would say I was a little caught off guard by the 49-26 score, however. Jay, you have any thoughts on the Montana Grizzlies and maybe what they could do?
On a serious note, Montana is a beautiful state to visit. Also, historically is a FCS powerhouse. Obviously, they weren't always known as FCS, but Montana has been a solid program for years and years. They do have a transfer from Boise State by the name of Sam Vidlac, who is has a very Montana name, which I like. Veteran offensive line, and I think, once again, you're looking at a decent amount of success for the Montana program. Just will continue this year.
Nice. I do agree with that. As a former FCS fan myself, and still check in on it, always had a lot of respect for the Montana program and the Montana fans. They're crazy up there. Their home field advantage is like none I've ever seen. Watching App State compete against them in the FCS playoffs was always amazing. I don't know, Jay, if you checked out the game from 2009, I guess I should say, in the snow. It was one of the better games of the day, even comparing it to FBS competition. Where are you going to replicate an environment like that where those fans are so close to the field? You got snow falling on the field. You've got two very quality teams going at it. Montana is a team that will consistently be in the top 25 just about every year, and one that could certainly climb even higher than what we think, going into the season. But again, if you get the chance to go to Montana, unfortunately I've never been, but I know people who have. I 100% agree with Jay about how beautiful of a place that I've heard it is. And obviously I think Jay will speak firsthand about that. Absolutely. There's a lot of respect for the Montana program and the Montana fans continuing to pump that program up. Jay, we're going to stay right here in town, about 5 minutes maybe from where we're at now. I'm going to pick North Carolina Central as my number 14 team going into the season. They were 4-1 in a MEAC conference last year that ultimately isn't the greatest, but I think I'm focusing more on how they finished the season against Coach Prime down in Atlanta, Georgia. Mercedes, what is is it Superdome? What do they call that down there? Mercedes what?
Yeah, Mercedes.
Or is it not Mercedes? Man, I'm going.
No, it is.
There's
two Mercedes domes now.
Mercedes
Atlanta
domes.
and New Orleans are both Mercedes. So Superdome still, but it is their Mercedes.
And that's
Superdome.
why you drive a Mercedes, isn't it, Jay? I mean,
yes.
This is an
for
ad.
The stadiums.
This is an ad, right?
Yes,
no free
strictly
ads.
for the stadiums.
No free ads, Jay. We're going to have to back charge Mercedes for this one. But yes, we're going to go with number 14, North Carolina Central, out of the MEAC. Again, they finished that season. Coach Prime and his Jackson State team really wanted to get that win for themselves, but certainly for Prime on his exit, and they couldn't do it because North Carolina Central was just a little too good that day. I think they're going to stay right where they're at. I think you really need to look at Davis Richard. Actually, kind of an outside shot at the NFL from what I've seen, online. He's a dual threat quarterback. I would say he's got a really good size to him. I'm not sure exactly the size off the top of my head, but somebody who certainly is a threat both running and throwing the ball. And we'll see what they can do damage-wise there in the MEAC, and hopefully see if they can get back to another Celebration Bowl to end their season. Jay, do you have any thoughts on the local team? Did you go to the parade downtown last year?
I did, but it was by accident. I was just driving. I had a doctor's appointment, and I ended up in the middle of it. But they actually not only returned the Offensive Player of the Year, but also the Defensive Player of the Year for the MEAC. So they have, you said Davis Richard? I'm going to say his name is Davius.
Davius, okay. There you go.
And they also have the cornerback Khalil Baker, who is the Defensive Player of the Year. And both of them are returning. So if nothing else, it'll be a fun season for the Eagles, which I did not know until I just Googled what their mascot was. I was thinking they were the Wildcats or something reptilian.
Do you know what the basic team color is, Jay, for the local team here in Durham?
I'm going to go with red.
Close. It's more of a maroon color, I would consider it.
Well, I am colorblind. Thank you for pointing that out.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for discriminating, Jay. I will try my best not to do that again.
But they do have weird jerseys. I did actually watch them play Jackson State, and I was surprised that they won because I thought Deion Sanders was untouchable.
Well, Deion Sanders didn't play in the game, Jay, so that's
He
probably
didn't.
why they did not win. However, Deion Sanders' son did play in the game.
Yeah,
and could have
he
helped
also
win.
lost.
He also lost, that's true. Jay, what do you say on the prospects of trying to check out an NC Central game at some point this season? We should provide video coverage for this as two white guys walk into an HBCU school to attend a football game.
No doubt.
I bet it's jumping. That's my guess.
I'm going to say that if we go, I'm going to just assume that they play Florida A&M, who is my team, and we need to go there.
We need to check and see if they're on the home schedule for NC Central this year. That would be one hell of a team. Maybe there'll be a rap video recorded before the game.
What I'll do is, while you are continuing the breakdown, I will look up the schedule, and I will see what game we need to attend.
Great idea. I just took a sip of another beer study beer. Again, no free ads. We will go back up to the front desk and tell them we need payment for these ads that we're throwing out to you. But if you are in Durham, North Carolina for any such reason, maybe an NC Central game, be sure to check out Beer Study. We do a lot of quality lunch breaks here, folks, and that's what we are doing here today to provide this entertainment for you. Then getting back up into the rankings from number 14 to number 13, we'll go up to New Hampshire. Went 7-1 in the CAA last year. Did lose 35-19 to Holy Cross in the second round. A little bit of a surprise with where Holy Cross kind of came out of the Patriot League there themselves. Holy Cross was quite the surprise last season. So ultimately not a big loss to overcome going into this next year. Again, New Hampshire being in that vaunted CAA conference. Expect them at 7-1 last year to be roughly around that same mark this year and again make the FCS playoffs. We'll see what damage they can do once they make their sticking in the CAA. I'm going to go with Richmond as the 12th ranked team. They finished 6-2 within conference last year, lost 38-31, so a one-score game there, close one, all the way out in Sacramento, California, as they went down to Sacramento State there in the second round. Jay, did you figure out if Florida A&M is coming to Durham, North Carolina this year?
Unfortunately, they're not. They do play X, but it is at X, so I don't know if we want to do that.
It could be interesting. That's not far from us either.
No, I'll continue looking.
Okay. So we will continue to look over that as we jump back into the rankings after we've looked at New Hampshire and Richmond from the CAA. We will get into the number 11 team. Jay, this is another team that's going to struggle with a name here. Southeast Missouri State. I think they could shorten that up a little bit. I know they go by SEMS. Nobody knows what that means. But they did go 5-0 in the OVC last year where they lost 34-24 to Montana Grizzlies there in the first round. Again, as we just spoke about the Montana Grizzlies, a formidable team. I just see them ending up kind of right here in the middle of that top 25-ish area like they did last year, kind of ending that season there at number 13. I think I've got them at the 11th spot going into this season. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on SEMO, as they are lovingly referred to, Jay?
I like kind of how you started that when you were saying Southeast Missouri, and it just seems like kind of lacks direction. I think that's how you end up in Southeast Missouri. You just look up on your GPS and you are in Southeast Missouri as you travel on to a actual city or state that you want to be a part of.
That's a good point. Yeah, how does anyone end up in Southeast Missouri? We'll probably hear from the Southeast Missouri fans, all two of them, when they get to hear this episode. But yeah, I think we've covered that one enough. We'll jump into our top 10 here, and the surprise a little bit from last season ended up number 6 overall, Holy Cross, out of the Patriot League, as we mentioned before, did go 6-0 in conference play. They did lose to the eventual national champions, South Dakota State, in quarterfinal action, 42-21. So reaching the quarterfinals, obviously not an easy task. However, they lose in there by 3 touchdowns, Jay. I don't know if I give a ton of value on a team that probably overperformed a little bit last year and then still lost by 3 scores to the eventual champions. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on a surprising Holy Cross team. Do you have any thoughts at all about teams in purple? Furman also purple, in case you didn't know. But
well, they are in the Patriot League. And from what I know is that there's nothing holier than a Patriot. So I'm going to say that, to me, they're the favorites to win the Patriot League once again. They are returning the only FCS quarterback to surpass 2,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards last year.
Interesting.
And Matthew Sluka? Either way, he's a hell of a player and a hell of a Patriot and an American. Red-blooded.
Yes, he is.
And not only that, they also have 2 opportunities against Division I foes, Boston College and Army this year. So we're talking about the Patriot representative, Holy Cross, going against the Patriot for the representative of the United States, Army, in a bitter rivalry of who's the most American football program in the United States.
That's true. That is a great point to make here. I also have to ask you, are you sticking with the fact that nobody likes Ford and Ham together, and they certainly don't like them separately, and that's why you picked Holy Cross to be better than Fordham in the Patriot League this season?
Yes. Once again, not that no one likes Ford and no one likes Ham, but if you're given a choice, your preference is not going to be Ford, and you're not going to ask for Ham.
What if I gave you the surprise of the episode and told you that I like both Ford and Ham?
Well, I would say you belong to the Patriot League because you're a Patriot.
Well, I guess...
Censor that. Sorry.
I guess, yeah, we'll bleep that out, guys.
I've had one too many beers.
Yeah, we're going strong on beer number 2 here. We've gotten totally out of hand here at Beer Study in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah,
Again, no free ads. We will refrain from giving them free sponsorship throughout the rest of the episode, or ask them for payment.
Yeah,
once it's
or
over.
not. We'll just
see where it goes. Maybe in the next episode we'll start with an ad from Beer Study.
Correct.
And maybe we'll get some free beers. Maybe, Jay, this is a hell of an idea. All right. Anyway, moving on to number 9. I've got Weber State or Weber State. I don't know whether you're a bigger grill fan or not is really going to be the determining factor. I believe it is Weber, even though they spelled it incorrectly. They didn't include the second E. There is only one E in Weber, so it looks like Weber. Anyways, they came out of the Big Sky last year with a 6-2 overall record, losing to Montana State in the second round, 33-25. Jay, we've yet to talk about Montana State, but they will be mentioned quite a bit up here as they ended the season up in that number 5 ranking. Any thoughts on Montana State, specifically pertaining to Weber State, which, Jay, I'm going to ask you a question here. Do you know where Weber State is located? Which state? I don't need the city.
Obviously Weber.
Well, that's cheating, Jay.
Trick question.
That is the easy way out.
Trick question. Everyone knows Weber is a great place. It's the
greatest.
It's between Montana and Idaho on the map. It's a small state, kind of like Rhode Island of the West.
17 people total population.
Right.
The football team is bigger than the entire state of Weber.
You blink, you miss it. You know what? I do not know where Weber State is.
Weber State is located in the great state of Utah. I believe they may be located in Ogden, Utah, of all places, but I will have to factually check that myself.
Yeah, double check. We'll fact check it.
Here in Beer Study, we have terrible cell phone reception, but we will try and fact check that for you as we go along in this episode.
No, we don't. We have great cell phone reception.
That's great. That's true.
I appreciate them hosting us.
That's true.
As our Number 1 ranked FCS podcast in America.
That's correct, folks. We will be back every 52 weeks to give you more great quality FCS coverage as we round the corner.
Not only was your Utah correct, also Ogden was correct.
Damn, I'm good.
So
what can I say, folks? I am a typical non-expert FCS breakdown analyst.
Yeah, you're a historian of FCS folklore.
I mean, that's one way to say it.
Also just a loser that knows FCS stuff. But I would appreciate, I do appreciate you knowing that. I also appreciate the new head coach's name.
Oh, we got to hear this.
At Weber State.
Yes, let's hear what this is.
Mickey Mental.
Oh.
Not Mickey Mantle.
Mental.
Mickey Mental.
Okay, I'm moving them up in the rankings for that.
And I'm just going to
say, I did not know that tidbit. I'm glad you provided that with us. Extra information there on that one, Jay. So
that's a new head coach, and I think if you have that name, you don't even need credentials, to be honest.
No, they just let you in.
Everyone knows football is a mental game as much as it is physical. And with a name like Mickey Mental, I have 100% faith that he's going to lead Weber State to as much success as much as they have ever seen, whatever that may be.
Right. No one knows what that is in Weber, but they're going to find out this season. The mental aspect of the game will be the strongest it's ever been. Mentally, physically, they'll be ready to go on the football field. Guess what, Jay? We get up into one of your favorites from earlier in the episode. We're now at number 8, the Furman Paladins of the SoCon. 7-1 last season. They did lose 41-38 in the second round versus UIW. As we covered before the episode started, UIW does stand for Incarnate Word, based down in Texas. Any thoughts on the Paladins and the Paladins from FU there in Furman University down there in South Carolina?
Furman is just a strong name. They've had a lot of success over the past, I would say, decade that I can recall, just being a solid program. As I said before, as well.
Yeah.
Fur and man together. You can't get much manlier than that. That's just alpha. That's an alpha name.
It is an alpha name.
And they also return running back Dominic. You might like that name.
Oh, man.
Roberto, which is
Dominic
fun.
Roberto.
This is fun to say.
This is fun to say. Not only that, my father's name being Robert, my name being Dominic, I might have to change my pick for number 1 after hearing that is their running back's name. That's quite impressive information that I did not know going into this rankings. So I will have to second guess who I've got there at number 1. But in the meantime, the team we just spoke about in Incarnate Word, I have them coming in at number 7, 5-1 from the Southland last year. They did lose 35-32 to North Dakota State in the semifinals. So very impressive team, very impressive game. I think I caught some of the end of that. Again, one-score game, field goal game, UIW. The problem I have with them returning to the rankings at number 3 where they ended this season is that they lost their head coach to Texas State of the Sun Belt Conference and lost some of their best players who hit that vaunted transfer portal to go with him. So I do believe they will drop in the rankings this year because of those, I guess you could say, concerns there. Any thoughts on UIW, or did you even know what UIW stood for before we started this episode?
I actually thought Incarnate was with an E. So
you're fired then, Jay. Grammar is number 1 here on this podcast.
That was a little bit of a surprise to me, but I will say that their initials are very similar to United Auto Workers, which is a union.
Interesting.
And so, when I look at those initials, I think of like United,
like a strong team.
Ice pickers worker.
Oh,
ice picking worker. Something like that.
Well, they're in Texas though. They're not in Alaska, Jay.
I know.
I don't think there's any FCS teams in Alaska.
everyone should know incarnate word, which, let's not go into that subject. It's a little long-winded, But what I wanted to say as a counterpoint is that they are going to have a 30-year-old coach who is going to be the Division I's youngest head coach this year. His name is Clint Killow. Awesome name.
It's a pretty good name. I don't know if it's as good as Dominic Roberto,
or Mickey Mental.
Yeah, I'm ranking it as a solid third after what we've already heard.
But it could be Clint Killow.
Ooh, it does improve.
Or Kilo, depending on how it's pronounced. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, our fans in Miami would like the Kilo reference, so...
Yeah, being in Texas, we're going to say Kilo.
Kilo. Yep, sounds about right for Texas.
Florida, Kilo. But what I would also say is that they do have and this is a secret weapon on the FCS level.
Oh.
They have a Division I transfer at quarterback.
Ooh.
Zach Calzada, who was a starter actually at Texas A&M in 2021 and actually beat Alabama.
Interesting.
So
that is
always
tidbit.
a secret weapon. Seems like anytime someone tends to transfer to the FCS level, they just go down and kill it. So I would expect
they kill it for Kilo.
They kilo it. I would expect he goes down and has a great showing for UIW, whom I've never even heard of before, but all of a sudden they're good at football.
Yep. Well, I think they should just host College Game Day so they could have some cool Kilo signs. Just
a 30-year-old coach also is damn near incredible at this point. I like that there is this youth movement in football. I feel like far too long we've had aged out coaches and things like that, so it's cool to see somebody that old getting a head coaching job at, really what is at this point a really great FCS program.
Yeah, I mean, if they score a touchdown, you got to be thinking he's doing the gritty on the sidelines, right?
Right.
He's got some experience.
He's dapping up his players.
Yep.
He's probably knows all of the Minecraft maps and things like that.
You know what? I also bet that he would be cool with a rap video shot in his locker room.
100 is
100.
100.
But he would only allow it if the rapper's name started with Lil.
Yeah, he would not let such a small-time rapper take over the locker room. There's no doubt.
It's a good point. It's a very valid point.
I mean, if I'm going to let a rapper take over my locker room, it's going to be somebody that I've at least listened to once on Spotify.
Good point. Spotify is a classy venue of music listening. Moving on, in the top 10, just outside the top 5, I have William and Mary coming in at number 6, went 7-1 in the CAA last year. Did get blown out in the quarterfinals by Montana State, however, 55-7. Again, as we spoke about, Jay, defense wins championships. You're not winning a championship when you allow 55 points to just about anybody. You're certainly not winning championships by scoring only 7 points. Any thoughts there on William and Mary out of Virginia? Not sure if I know exactly where they're located in Virginia, but I do know William and Mary, the tribe, as they are known, is located in the state of Virginia.
So what is their actual mascot?
That's a great question. I think they're just called the tribe. They probably can't have a mascot anymore. That nickname.
That doesn't seem
correct. Seem woke or appropriate at all.
Yeah.
They'll probably have to change that. It will certainly offend someone sooner rather than later.
That marriages between William and Mary, not Adam and Steve. And I will go with your backing on William and Mary and say that they're just going to run the East Coast, basically.
Okay.
When it comes to FCS football, no one's stepping to William and Mary. With a name like William and Mary, what are you going to do about it? That is the most badass
it's
college name I've ever heard of in my life.
It's just so non-discriminatory because they've included a male and a female's name.
Yeah.
When so many underrepresentation is happening this day, we still remember that Virginia is for lovers, Jay. And that's why William and Mary lands just outside the
It's
top
a
five.
beautiful
there
love story.
at number 6.
To be
It
honest.
is. It's a great love story.
If you don't know about it, look it up. It is about King William and Queen Mary, and it is a story for the ages.
A tale as old as time, Jay.
Yes.
As they like to say.
Beauty and the Beast is actually about William and Mary. So I just wanted to give you guys that little tidbit. Also, they really are the powerhouse on the East Coast. So let's, I guess, wish them the best on their future ventures.
Why not? We'll stick with that for sure. Going at number 5, we are in the top 5. We're rounding out this FCS rankings. We're going to go with Montana State, who went 8-0 out of the Big Sky last year. They did, however, lose 39-18 to the eventual national champion, South Dakota State, in the semifinals. I don't know here. I think they were just close enough in that score there against a really good quality opponent that I feel like they're probably not falling off much from last season. Again, they went undefeated in conference play. I just see them kind of staying there yet again to return to the playoffs and probably cause some damage. I'm going to keep them kind of right where they ended the season there in the top 5. Any thoughts there on Montana State Bobcats, as they are known?
Montana State is just another traditional FCS powerhouse. Have been around, just one of those teams that you were like, hey, was this the same team that was in the championship last year, or was that Montana? They just kind of rotate on who's the best. And, I think that the thing I like about Montana State is they still play kind of that old smash mouth football. They just have a ton of good players. A lot of people that are questionable, like could they have went, Division I, or I don't know all the names now because they keep changing them. But
yeah, it's just letters now, Jay.
Yeah,
it's like, just letters.
The people that end up going pro and playing running back somehow, some way ended up playing for Montana State, and they were a great running back. And you get to see those types of players on the field, lots of talent, just people that didn't go to the big programs. So they're one of those teams that's fun to watch. They still play that old school kind of smash mouth when people think of Big Ten football. Montana State is definitely one of those programs.
Absolutely. They'll be in the Big Ten in no time. And
Yeah,
Big Ten
the
just
way things are
absorbing
going,
everybody.
probably. Yes.
Yeah. So going into number 4, got a little bit of an outsider. Not a total shock here, but I'm going to go with Samford from the SoCon. They went 8-0 within the SoCon last year. Did lose 27-9 to North Dakota State in the quarterfinals. Not a great showing specifically in that game. However, North Dakota State, as we know and as many of you have seen, a tough place to win at. I do think Samford, being located in the state of Alabama, is kind of a hotbed recruiting ground. Very religious school. We all know that the religious schools recruit really, really well. I'm going to say that Samford jumps up here into the top 5, gains my number 4 ranking going into this season with a really impressive SoCon season last year. And, I'm just going to group this in together since we just talked about them losing to North Dakota State. Go ahead and tell you my number 3 team, which is North Dakota State, who went 7-1 out of the Missouri Valley Football Conference last year. They only lost to the national champions in the national championship game. They did, however, lose that game 45-21. Jay, any thoughts on either and or Samford and North Dakota State before we get into our top 2 teams?
Well, you gotta respect North Dakota State at this point. They've just been so good for the past decade or so. 9 titles over 11 years. I mean, give me a break. So, absolutely, North Dakota State's going to be there in the end.
Should they just call it the North Dakota State Invitational at this point? It feels like that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. No one knows what the Dakotas are known for, but if you look at it from an FCS standpoint, they're absolutely known for football powerhouses at this point. So, given that North Dakota State is once again one of the favorites to be, at lowest top 5. you know that they're going to be there during the playoffs, and I love the playoff format. They were the trendsetters in the FCS as far as that's concerned. Having that playoff format is going to be something that we continue to see, I think, expanded upon when it comes to the BCS. And, I definitely think that North Dakota State's going to be another great team to watch, and most likely one of the favorites for a championship.
Absolutely. It's just like most of the big-time programs in the SEC, they don't rebuild, they just reload. It just seems like it doesn't matter whether it's a coach, a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensively, it doesn't matter. They just replace these quality players with more quality people to put into those positions. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump up to number 1, and I'll go back to number 2 just because I think that's going to be the surprise of this episode. I'm going to go with Sacramento State as my number 1 team just because they did go 8-0 in the Big Sky, which is kind of awkward considering that Montana State also went 8-0 in the Big Sky. Apparently they just don't play each other. They must have a conference big enough that they just don't have to play every team. That's fine. But interesting statistic there is we know most of the FBS conferences don't have undefeated teams from the same conference very often. Anyway, Sacramento State lost 66-63 versus Incarnate Word in the quarterfinals, but they had one heck of an offense that should return pretty well. However, we will note that they did lose Troy Taylor, who took this great season with Sacramento State and was awarded with the Stanford head coaching job. So they did lose their head coach. However, I don't think they lost a lot of their talented players for that reason. With such a close loss in an overtime game there to Incarnate Word, who also played North Dakota State decently well, I'm going to say Sacramento State takes kind of the chip on their shoulder into this season. South Dakota State maybe is my number 2 team. Went 8-0 in their conference as well, and obviously won the national championship in that regard. Just going to say that they don't quite get there for 2 years in a row. And I'm thinking a Sacramento State team from out west, there in California, hotbed for recruits. You got to think that somebody's got to take North Dakota State's place in this championship game at some point, and they finally don't make it for like the first time in what seems like forever. Jay, your thoughts on Sacramento State and South Dakota State entering the season?
Well, what I'll say is an interesting tidbit that is left out of that is that Sacramento State has South Dakota transfer quarterback Carson Camp.
Ooh.
So that lines up nicely to them meeting in the tournament, if nothing else. I think both teams have a great shot at making the Final Four. And what I would like to see is the Big Sky's actual conference, because I don't understand how you can have 8-0 teams, two 8-0 teams in your conference. So I need to look at this a little bit closer and examine it. But I will also say that I'm going to have to disagree with you and say that South Dakota State is still my favorite for the number 1 spot.
We didn't agree upon this before this episode, folks. We're going to have to take a break. We'll come back. I'm just kidding.
One of the main reasons is, they are the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. And I just think that Jackrabbits, anytime you have that as a possible mascot to cheer for, you have to go with the Jackrabbits. Not only that, but obviously South Dakota State has established themselves as the powerhouse next to North Dakota State. And also, if I'm correct, and I don't know that I am, but if they're playing outside, I enjoy that. So
they do play outside. I can confirm that they do play outside. I would assume Sacramento State also plays outside. And as we mentioned earlier, Jay,
but they're in
Sacramento
California.
State closer to the equator. So
correct.
For that reason,
that's true.
I'm sticking with Sacramento State over South Dakota State.
Right.
But it would be a battle of the teams that start with S in the championship game. It would be a hell of a matchup with former South Dakota State quarterback transferring to Sacramento State, as you mentioned earlier, Kemp. That could be a very, very interesting thing to come look at towards the end of the season here and see where we're going to have those two teams possibly match up in the FCS playoffs. come this season, 2023.
I would also add that South Dakota State has the 5th Gronkowski brother. He actually goes by Mark Gronowski, and he was the title game's most outstanding player. So technically, he's not a Gronkowski, but I'm going to say that the Gronkowskis would actually recognize him as the 5th brother. Well, I think there's 4 Gronkowski brothers, so I'm going to say he's going to be the 5th brother. And
they're all dumb enough to recognize somebody else that's close with the wrong spelling.
Correct.
And just say he's still part of the family.
Yeah, so I think that overall, when we're coming down to brass tacks and what means what in football, being somewhat related to the Gronkowskis is always a plus.
Absolutely, especially when you are a big dumb idiot that loves to take hits and just get into the end zone.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. As mentioned, we will be back 52 weeks from now to go over our FCS rankings for the 2024 season. And in the meantime, check us out as we continue along with the Dawg Sports Media Network and College Football Dawgs. We will see you next time.
Syndicate.